Welcome. Here we are, continuing our journey from Pesach to Shavuot, the first grains, the first fruits, the liberation from Egypt, from Mitzrayim, from a narrow place, to the revelation and the openness of the wilderness at Sinai. So let's take some breaths. Let's keep ourselves in this moment, in this present. This is where we are right now. And ground ourselves in this moment as we prepare to continue our count of the Omer. And so we bless. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign spirit of the universe, who brings us holiness with the mitzvot and connects to us with the counting of the Omer. Hayom Shmona Yamim Shehem Shavuot Echad V'Yom Echad V'Omer. Today is 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day of the Omer. A day of Chesed, Chesed Sheba Gevurah. A day of Chesed in a week of strength. So here we are. We're starting a new week. A week of strength. That's our container that will be adding us Sphirah each day. And it occurred to me today, I was wondering what the container would be, right? What material would it be made of? As I'm going with this analogy of a container, that the week Sphirah is a container. And we keep adding, and we cover, and we count it on, put it on the shelf. So Gevurah has that's whatever material, what are we putting it into? Because last week, we had the material, we had Chesed. We had this week of Chesed. And it was emotional and maybe kind of feeling vaporous to me, porous. And in that somewhat porous softness of a container, we added Gevurah, we added strength, giving it support, structure. Today, our container is strength. And we add that vaporous, that softness. Maybe that porousness, I don't know, softness, into this container of strength. Does it penetrate? Does it integrate? Does it balance out that more rigid structure of Gevurah? I don't know. That's for us to figure out today, each one of us, as we look at it. Because the beauty of ritual, one of the beauties of ritual, as we know, I'm not the ritual maven for nothing. I have a ritual I find just so deep. And one of the depths of it is that the ritual itself doesn't change. That's the beauty of ritual. That's what part of its definition. So the ritual doesn't really change. We change. Our relationship to the ritual changes. We may need to adapt it with that change, but the base ritual remains the same. Its source is there. We're the ones who change and add those layers to it. And that's how we renew each year. The ritual is a bit different. We bring our different selves to it, and it renews it each time we return to it. Now, sometimes that change is just in the moment. It works for that day, it works for that year. It gets you through to the next day, wherever. And then there are those times where something, you get that teaching, you get that moment, that aha, that actually ends up being one of those teachings that travels with you through the years. And I'm going to share one of those with you today that was mine. I mentioned it in the intro because in my second year of counting the Omer, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was going through treatment actually at that time for breast cancer. I was diagnosed. My diagnosis actually, my travels in cancer followed the Hebrew calendar, the Jewish sacred calendar. Not a surprise, I guess. But I was diagnosed during Hanukkah. My first surgery was the day after Christmas. I know that's not in the Jewish calendar, but it kind of feels like in the scheme of things, it needs to be mentioned. I started chemotherapy on the 1st of Nisan, which is one of the 4 new years on the Jewish calendar and the start of the month of Pesach. And my last infusion was on the 49th day of the Omer. And to wrap it up, I finished radiation right before Rosh Hashanah. So counting the Omer that year was an interesting experience. The immediate benefit is that I didn't have to feel like I was a prisoner with the, you see those pictures of the prisoners on the wall and they tick off the days that they're there, just counting out, not can't wait to that day when they're done. And I didn't really need an extra counting for that. Actually, the counting of the Omer became much more meaningful that year because it was not only going through this ritual, and I was only in my second year of it. So I don't know, I was still kind of new to it. I still wasn't sure where I was going. Was I going to make it through? But this year, yeah, I was going to make it through because the counting was so important to me. Because I didn't have to think about it. I knew where it was going, and I knew I got to that 49th day, and there was a comfort in that for me. But there was one other teaching I got that year that I've carried with me all these years. And that is a teaching on strength. Because it's hard when you're going through something that you have no control over it. You feel helpless. You feel like you have no strength. And it's often hard to ask for help. Because why can't you do what even though it's very rational why, there still is I can do this, or maybe wanting to maybe that would give you some control. But there's a reality that I learned that year. And that what I learned that year is that it takes just as much strength to reach out with an open palm than it does to just raise a clenched fist. The strength is very different. It manifests in different ways. And sometimes you need that clenched fist. So there's no judgment involved in this teaching. But there has to be that realization that this is also strength. And so I wish for you in this week of strength to remember that we add loving kindness as that first layer. For balance, for buffer, for integration. Strength takes many forms. And it doesn't always have to be so hard. Laila Tov, and I'll see you tomorrow.